Agents. What if you could turn every buyer interaction into a serious offer? And even better, ensure that when buyers are ready to sell, they come straight back to you. Imagine qualifying buyers in just minutes, eliminating objections before they arise, and building client relationships so strong that they are clients for life. Join me live for the Ultimate Buyer Qualification Blueprint Workshop, a one-time event with only 20 seats available. I'll guide you through the exact strategies elite agents use to spot serious buyers, maximize viewings, and turn every buyer into a future seller, even if they don't buy through you. Don't miss out on this chance. Head over to payhip.com/Savage Academy to secure your spot, and let's transform your buyer interactions for long-term success. Hello and welcome to another episode of Zero BS Estate Agency. Today I am absolutely thrilled to bring you a conversation with a real game changer in this industry, Jonathan Morgan. Now, Jonathan Morgan of Peter Morgan Estate Agents based in Wales is an agent who is redefining what it means to work with honesty and transparency. Now, of course, as you know, in an industry where lengthy contracts and price reductions are often the norm, Jonathan's approach is refreshingly different. His commitment to putting his clients first, giving them real insights and guidance instead of just trying to close deals, I love it. Right now, in this episode, we dive deep into Jonathan's philosophy, his straightforward tactics, and why he believes integrity should be at the heart of every estate agency. This one's packed with insights, and I cannot wait to share it with you. So, Jonathan, what is the one thing that truly maximizes the value of someone's home when they go to sell their property?
It's a very interesting question because there's so many ways that I want to answer that for you. But I think the one that jumps to mind first is the quality of the agent that you appoint to maximize that value. That person has a direct impact and will factor whether you get the best price for your property or not.
So are you saying then that just because an agent thinks they need leads and they get a lead and then they go and meet a seller, for the seller, that agent could just be saying things that sound nice because the agent, they got the lead, but they don't really know what they're doing?
100%. The shifting way and sands of the current estate agency market, if you don't look at the outward customer facing at the minute, but if you look at the internal shift, that you've got the emergence of like EXP, self-employed models coming through, there's all of a sudden more of a need to list properties. There's a big thing with agents coming forward with charging upfront fees for marketing, etc. But that's just bolstering the cash flow to let them get through the dry times. You know, we're a no sale, no fee agent that is paid a success fee at the end for selling the house. You know, my job is to sell a price for a client that they're happy with on a percentage basis. That means the more they get, the more I get. You know, it's getting convoluted and changed in the fact that people are desperate to win business. You've got more small independents with 1, 2, 3 properties that are all vying to win business. And I think sellers are getting drawn into this awful place where they're essentially being used as marketing fodder for their own agent success to win other instructions. And it's not necessarily about selling that house. It's about how many houses they can get off the back of that house.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's a very important thing you've just raised there, because the seller now thinks that they're in the mix, right? They may have spent the last 9, 12 months thinking about selling their house, and now they've come to it. Would you say it's almost like the biggest event of their lives that they're currently in? And if they're selling the tickets at the wrong price, they don't even know a lot of the time.
Yeah, 100%. You know, the proof is in the pudding, isn't it? You know, you put a house on the market, and if it doesn't sell, everybody blames the market. Oh, it's tough at the minute, people aren't looking, but everything will sell at the right price at the right time. It's that you need an agent that gets you to that right price, or he starts you at that right price as quick as possible. One of the biggest tools that I've done that when we're sitting in the living room and doing business is the calculators. If you get it wrong and it takes 16, 20 weeks to get an offer, how much does that cost you in running costs, insurance, cost of living, mortgages with higher interest rates? You can just knock that off your achieved price. So would
Yeah.
you take 5 or 10 grand less today if it saves you that in costs in the next 6 months? And why wouldn't you? But
Mm.
people don't get to the core of that. So many agents go to houses, and we're getting it now. My team are up against people saying, well, what do you want for the house?
Yeah.
And that, I thought we got rid of that in the 90s and early 2000s. That's not a way to conduct yourself, is what you want for the house.
Mm.
There's so much information available now that everybody is an expert in the living room. Everybody knows what next door sold for, or how much it is per square foot. That's
Hmm.
not what your job is. Your job is to guide your client to find out for them what is the best price. Is it you need it now? I need to sell the property really quickly. Or is it, yeah, you know what? We're not in a particular rush. We've got a family home to go to. We're moving in with parents. So ours is about getting that absolute maximum penny possible.
Mm.
And those two will need completely different marketing tactics, different
Hmm.
sets of skills in order to facilitate that sale. It's not a one shoe fits all scenario. It's not one agent fits all. And it's not one agent can sell, one property at 500,000, another one at 5 million, or in my case, where we are 100,000 and a million.
Hmm.
It's a completely different skill set, a different process journey, but also a different need of knowledge. And you need to have a lot more information at your skill set, and you can only earn that. You can't buy it or learn it. You've got to earn it, and that's through experience.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely agree. And how do you though? How do you, when you're with, say, for example, a seller and they're thinking about selling their home, they've called you in, how do you get that level of experience across? Because one of the things that really intrigued me, and one of the reasons why I'm so grateful, because I know I've asked you months ago to do this, but of course you've been too busy for me. But that's all right. That's okay. But I watched a video when you was on the Watkins sofa. And those of you listening right now that don't know what the Watkins sofa is, as Christopher Watkins, basically, he's got a sofa where he interviews agents and he doesn't really care what he asks them. He's just trying to get to the heart of how it really works. And you
Yeah,
said on that well, short clip from the actual main video, my negotiators don't even know what a price reduction is. And
yeah,
I was gobsmacked because I was like, holy smoke, that is so strong and bold for an agent to actually say, because for a lot of sellers, they don't realize that's the next step. Win the
yeah,
instruction, get them signed up to a ridiculously long contract. And
yeah.
then when you said, oh, the market's not what we thought it was, that's the tactic. That's the next step, is the price reduction.
Yeah, sign them high and sell them low. It's a corporate world that is still in this place now. For us, we run a zero, no sale, no fee, no upfront costs, 14-day contract. Take it off. That's fine. You can leave. We put our money where our mouth is. And the comment he made was very bold, because I do like to be slightly controversial sometimes. But coming out of that COVID piece that we had, my business was transformed by being a very clear, honest understanding with each client as to what it is that they really would take for that house and what was their step off point or price.
Mm.
You know, Having an open and frank conversation with them. We do fixed fees, we do percentage fees, we speak to the client and see what their need is and assess it. Where we're based, and certainly during COVID, and then with the Rented Homes Act and changes that came through, we had a lot of people looking to exit our core property postcodes because they buy to lets that weren't interested anymore, people relocating. So we worked hard with my property expert team to find out what was actually the value of the property to the client, what we felt was a likely sale price. And then we built that into a nice round number that we could work towards as a common goal, bringing the clients into that with us so that they were aware of what we were doing to make sure that we were hitting those numbers. Now, we didn't, or we don't sell a lot of properties with a price reduction.
Mm.
We try really hard to avoid it because, in my opinion, not always. It doesn't always go to plan. I'm not sitting here saying, we never reduce properties, because that's not what it is. But we work really hard on the external winning business team to make sure that doesn't happen. And the sales negotiators, that's not their job. They're not there to reduce prices. They're there to sell the properties. The listers, if we've got to reduce, they go back round and they're the one that's doing the work. But the selling team believe that that price is right for the property, and that comes across in their selling techniques when they're recommending it to people. It's hard to say, oh yeah, it was reduced on the 13th of March, the 13th of April, and the 13th of May. Somebody's wondering what's going on with that house. But if it's on for the same price and it's only been on 5 weeks and getting lots of viewings, it's a much easier thing to sell.
Yeah, and that's really interesting. I was watching a guy called Jeff Ketterer. So he actually works in a completely different industry, and what they call it, like some sort of closing, something remote closer. That's it. So he works and he sells like Tony Robbins. So he will sell his workshops, courses, and stuff like that, right? So he's calling people and he's going through like loads of sales techniques. Now, he was asked the question, what is the best sales technique that you could possibly use in order to convince someone to do what you want them to do? And he said, my answer may surprise you. My answer is, are you passionate, driven, and believe in what you are selling? So to your point, I know when I used to come back from valuations and the guys in the office would say to me, right, so John, have you got the property on? I'm like, yes. Before I could finish my sentence of how much it was, my negotiators are already on the phone calling out their buyers because there was not only was it bang on the right money, everything was set as it should have been. Versus, and this is what sellers don't see, versus the agent that comes back and says, right, so what do you got it on the market for? I've got it on for 475. But all the negotiators, they absolutely know because they're good. They know it's actually worth 400 grand. So now, do they have the same drive, determination, enthusiasm, passion, belief in 475? No, because they know they're going to waste their time. So it goes back to it's part of the game plan, right? We just get it on, get them signed up to a 20-week contract, and then we just basically batter them down on the price reduction, pretending we didn't know what the market was doing.
Yeah, and I can't believe that it's still there now. I've been in it 20 years this month now, coming straight from school. And it's still the same tactic. That's done. It's just mind bending that people still do it. But that's the power of corporate agency and marketing, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
I just think they just do a disservice. 20 16-week contracts and 5 price reductions is embarrassing.
Completely. But you know what though? A 14-day contract, I absolutely love that because, like you said, you're living, breathing the example. But why? Why though? Because that's my impression. But why did you go, actually, no, we're going to do a 14-day contract? Because for me, that's not a gimmick.
No, it's not a gimmick. No, it's a massive shift in the ethos and the intention with my property company. So, this year that we our new mission statement was property properly. And it's something that I really do believe that we embody, that we put our money where our mouth is. It's a very expensive business to run with the cost of running a business and the new budget and things that have come through. We don't sell a lot of houses. We don't make any money. And where we are geographically as well, at the lower end of the pricing strategy, we're really pleased with our fees that we get. So ours is a volume business, but just because you have a volume business doesn't mean that the quality has to drop. And this is something I talked to someone else about recently, which is that we're really proud to be a successful agent that sells a lot of properties and charges good fees. I don't understand why in estate agency or British culture, you're almost like apologetic for charging a fee for your service.
Yeah.
And it's something that really, really does wind me up. So what I thought when we were looking at this is like, well, what do we do? It was doing the purple bricks explosion and everything else that comes forward that, up front or, charging marketing fees. And I said, well, look, I can't put my money where my mouth is any more than the fact that I'm not going to charge you anything up front. I'm going to do all of the work. And if you don't like it after 2 weeks, you can leave. Well, I'm sorry, what have you got to lose? Because I know that we get properties on the market between 24 and 48 hours at a push, more like 24 hours. It's got the socials, it's got the drones, it's got the walkthroughs, the tours, Rightmove, Zoopla on the market, website, so everything. And we do all that straight away. So if that's not commitment to getting you the best price for your property, I don't know what is. And that just runs through transparent. And we don't get a lot of withdrawals. Everybody's always worried, this is going to change in 2 weeks. Well, why? Because if you've left it on for 8 weeks or 12 weeks or 16 weeks, you're asking them to reduce and then you're getting 15 letters through your door every week. You're more likely to lose that property there and then than if you've done everything up front and been honest and said, look, this is what we want to sell it for.
Yeah.
You know, some of the external team that we do some training with, they do get a little bit not upset, but they get a little bit cagey with some of the chats that we have about how you deliver that. But for me, you know, it is literally everything is out there. It's transparent. Tell them exactly what I'm going to charge them. If they sell it for this much at this price, this percentage is what they're walking away with. And do they want that price? And if they're umming and ahhing and they're not sure, sometimes we're not the agent for them. You know, how many
Yeah.
how many good independent family agents and small businesses lose thousands of pounds a year on people who are dilly-dallying, but they're desperate to get that instruction because they feel they need the instruction. Goes right the way back to, do you want the instruction? Not do you need it, do you want it? Can you afford it? Can you sell it at that price? You know, I'd rather wait. If you want 50, 40 grand too much, or you're not happy to pay the fee, try the corporate, try the other one, wait 16 weeks, get called 15 times for reduction or not at all, and then have a chat with me.
You know, I love that because one of the when I first become a sales manager, the two guys, and I was so lucky, so lucky. So James and Steve that had the franchise, they said to me, John, always go for the second sale.
Yeah.
And so we explored that, and I was like, holy shit, that is amazing. The fact that they are business owners and obviously want as many properties that they possibly could sell, but they were mature enough and knowledgeable and educated and confident enough to know that you don't want every single sale, because a lot of the sales, if you're promising things that you can't deliver, will make you ill. And
Yeah.
and that is if you're that small independent and you're desperate. Like you said, you shouldn't be desperate. Always go for the second sale versus the business model of the corporate agency, which is about just throwing as much shit at the wall and hopefully some of it will stick. And so a lot of the time the owners don't actually understand, and that's why I do like the TikTok channel, calling it Zero BS Estate Agency. The whole purpose around that channel is to make sure that sellers know they've got a choice. Here's the choice. I'm demonstrating what the choice is. This is, if you want the lying, dirty, horrible, stinking estate agent to tell you things that sound nice, right? As long as that agent is advocating for that, I have no problem, because there
Yeah.
are sellers out there that want that type of agent. But what about the seller that just wants for their hand to be held, to be shown the right way, but they meet the lying, dirty, horrible, stinking agent that actually isn't being honest with them? Do you know what I mean? And to your point,
100%.
ends up costing them thousands of pounds in lost revenue. And then not only when they do go to sell, they've then got to pay that agent's fee on top.
Yeah.
Versus what you're doing is by going, no, let's have a conversation here, because I'm not in the convincing business. I'm in the disqualification business, and I just want to make sure that you as a seller and us as a business are right for each other, because what I'm attempting to do is actually raise the bar and actually achieve you a lot more, which means my fee on paper may sound like a lot, but the reality is the amount I'm saving you means that I'm probably the cheapest. Would that be fair?
100%. You know, our goal is that whatever the baseline or base price is, if we get over that, our fees are free. You know, if somebody's happy to take £90,000 for the house and our fees are 3.5 grand, if we get them 94,000, our fees are cost them nothing.
Well, 500 quid.
Yeah. You know, so that's how we work it, and that's how the guys are trained to look at the numbers, and this is why they've got to work with the client to make sure that they believe in us enough and trust us enough to give us the honest answer, because, you know, we're getting a lot of times now where people can't afford their property because of interest rate increases, etc. So it's vital that we don't mess around. You know, we are a service industry, but we're paid on success. That's why we don't charge fees up front. So if we're going into that living room, that person's trusting us with arguably, or, you know, their biggest asset they'll ever own. Don't want to mess it up and just go back because you're happy that your right move pie chart says that you've done more than anybody else in the village. I mean, I've never been asked in 20 years what my market share is by a client,
Yeah.
ever. You know, I don't know. I don't look at that. You know, I look at how many houses we list versus how many we sell and how many we make a good percentage on. That's all that
Yeah.
matters to us.
And so then you're constantly looking then at the analytics.
Yeah, 100% for us. What we look at is what we list versus what we sell versus what we resell, and then what we sell goes through to completion. You know, we're very, very keen on that. You know, our completion rate is staggeringly high versus the national average. Our amount of sale is good as well. It's not as good as it was 2 years ago, obviously, because the market's changed. There's a lot more stock now available, a lot more choice. but we're still doing our best to carve out that honest approach and that realistic approach to getting the best price possible. But for my team, you know, they're not targeting on how many listings they do. They're
Mhm.
targeting on what fees they generate when they sell the property. So
Yeah.
that is a really interesting mindset because, we laugh, right? My agency is like a halfway house for ex-corporate agents. My team won't mind saying that. They've gone out there, tried it, and now they've come back into, this atmosphere that we run a good, solid team with a really good holistic approach to employment, and we try and keep the team there. But they're not being shouted at to get 22 listings a month. They're targeted to get X amount in fees. Now, when they're thinking about that, a slight alteration, a slight increase on their fee, change the percentage, believing in what they're selling, they're actually doing less work for the same amount of fees. You've got a happier valuer, you've got a much better listing team. They list in stock as well at good prices because their fees are keen because they know they're going to get more money for that commission. So it's
Mhm.
just a complete change in the industry. Like I said, I've honestly, the whole time, I've only ever been asked for once for a market share, and that was a bloke that worked for an estate agent that was selling a house,
Yeah. And because
and
because
that's it.
yeah, because market shares mean nothing. You could have 20 properties on the market. Wrong. You could have four properties on the market versus another agent down the road that's got 20 properties on the market. But is that other agent with 20 properties on the market, have they sold them? Are those 20
Well, no,
making those agents
this is the
ill?
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you
And
do, if you could alter it and look at it, that if you could alter it so that you look at the completed percentage in the last 12 months as a market share, that's a conversation I'd like with any agent.
mm,
That's a fun one, but
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
a whole different podcast for a whole different day. That is.
Yeah. But I tell you what, I do need to ask you, why though? Why do you go to this level? Of course, it's game understanding, it's knowing the rules, it's knowing how to, bend the rules to your will and to help your client out because it's not all like one size fits all, of course. But why though does Jonathan Morgan go to that level? What is it? What is the thing that really makes you go, no, 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 no. I'm changing this. I'm doing it the right way and having the guts and courage to do it the right way.
Two parts to the answer. Number one is that I love property. It's something that I'm passionate about. The industry, everything in it, I love. Even though I moan about it quite a lot, I do love it. Property's inbuilt in my blood. And secondly, is that I employ near enough 50 people. Those 50 people rely on me. Their families do for their wages, their mortgages, their health insurance, their food on the table. I can't afford to get it wrong, not only for my family, but for all them as well. We're a family business at heart. And if I'm prepared to accept a lesser standard or not do the job properly, I know that my business is not going to be successful. And therefore, all those people are going to be lacking. And that's not what I'm about. My job is to go forward and make sure everybody's looked after.
Man, I love that. Absolutely love that. And that is so the other end of the spectrum compared with your corporates
Yeah.
who literally I spoke to one corporate guy and he said to me, and he's one of the like operations managers and again, like 50 offices, something like that. And he was like, right, John, why do you care so much about what a seller achieves? That's not your job. Your job is to get them on a 22-week contract and then get them to
Yeah.
reduce. And I later on found out, and I've said this on the podcast before, I later on found out from an ex-employee there that their negotiators are incentivized as soon as the contract is signed, as soon as that property goes to market, they're incentivized to do price reductions. And whoever the last agent was to get the lowest price reduction at the point at which the property sold gets basically a commission of 3% of the actual commission that was generated. Imagine
Wow.
that the sellers don't even know that the agents, negotiators are not actively working on their behalf. They are tasked to get the price reduction down. So they're not actually selling property. It's just a conveyor belt of shit. And they're all in on it from the highest level down to the person sitting at reception. Do you know what I mean? And it's just like, it's like, wow, how is that even a thing? So to your point, which is like so the other way, which is no, I've got people that work for me. They need to pay their rent. They need to pay their mortgages. They need to be able to put fuel in their car or make sure that their kids are fed and looked
Mhm.
after. And mate, honestly, I'm sitting there. That's just put goosebumps over me. That has because I think that is there. Of course, there are other agents out there which I've interviewed and other agencies as well that do something very similar. But you're only probably in the 1-2% of agents that like what you just said.
I
Yeah.
may appreciate that.
Yeah, mate, it's absolutely incredible. Honestly, Jonathan, I'm so grateful to you, mate, for coming on this podcast, and it's been an absolute pleasure. And I'm pretty much lost for words, if I'm honest. Probably the first time that I've been sort of lost for words. But again, I'm so glad I watched you on the Watkins sofa, and I've seen the other stuff as well. But just that one sentence, I just thought, wow, that is just estate agency in a box. If you wanna know how a estate agency works, work on the basis of price reductions aren't allowed, because that sets the tone for absolutely everything. And that's when you get people in the office that are super passionate, driven, determined to get the job done for the client, not the other way around. Yeah, mate, it's amazing. Right, that wraps up today's episode of Zero BS Estate Agency. A huge thank you to Jonathan Morgan for joining us and sharing his insights into what it means to do estate agency the right way. Now, if you found today's conversation as inspiring as I have, be sure to subscribe or leave a review and share this episode with anyone who needs to hear it. Honestly, team, let's continue raising the bar and setting new standards in estate agency together. Thanks for tuning in. And I cannot wait until I'm behind the mic on another episode and see what else I can bring you.